You just gave a presentation on the CAMA Act 2020. I mean, how would you describe the act, especially the sections that has to do with religious and authorities? Could it be described as a draconian law against the church?
I will not say the law is against the church. The law is aimed at corporate governance, aimed at making all registered organizations to run their organizations to be accountable to the people they are overseeing, and to be accountable to the government. As I made the distinction very clearly, I tried to make it that, look, nobody wants to interfere with your pastoral work, wants to interfere with how your sacramental life, you're being a shepherd, you're being a superior in your congregation. Those are religious things that government cannot regulate. However, you run schools, you run hospitals, you run bank accounts, right? There are properties involved. It's no longer just a religious matter. It's now also social, financial, whatever. And there are government regulations that keep being updated or reviewed to ensure that money, let's say, collected on behalf of a people, that you are accountable to the people. So it is about corporate governance. I wouldn't say there are draconian laws. Actually, a lot of the things that I read out today are not new. The only things that are new are the ones that I mentioned about sole trusteeship and the issue of the possibility of a trustee being removed for misconduct. Good. Now, the reason why people are shouting and complaining is because of the weakness of institutions in Nigeria. If institutions were strong in Nigeria and not individuals, we run a country of big men rather than big institutions. If institutions were strong and people are fair in running institutions and in applying sanctions when there is a default, then nobody will bother. The reason why people are complaining is that we know in this country that institutions are weak and some individuals are strong. So if you have somebody who is the registrar there and the person does not like your face, that he can look for something that you are doing wrong and apply sanctions. Whereas 10 other people are doing the same thing wrong, he will not work on it. So it is from that point of view that some people are saying, hey, let's be careful here. We shouldn't allow an institution or a person to have such powers. And that is where CAN has taken the corporate affairs to court and asking that, look, those controversial, we still call them controversial elements of the law. Those controversial elements of the law, let's take another look at it. And this law was made by the National Assembly. And I am saying, should it only be the bishops or the priests or the pastors that should be concerned about the Christian church and the interests of the Christian church? Where were the senators? Where were the House of Rep people? Because this thing passed through the various stages of lawmaking. This is now to tell us if there are aspects, if there are controversial elements of the new CAMA law, the CAMA 2020, it means our lawmakers should sit up. Our Christian lawmakers should sit up. So that any law that is coming, they should shine their eye and look at it to make sure that there is nothing that will curtail their freedom of functioning as Christians, as Catholics, that nothing affects the way that we function. It is their responsibility. Why do we have them there? Now, this law passed through all the stages, including public hearing, to when it was passed and signed into law. And then we started shouting because our lawmakers did not alert us that there is something coming. So this is it that, we keep crying and shouting. There was a time that they kind of removed Christian religious knowledge from the secondary school WAEC curriculum. But who was the director at that time of that agency? It's a Christian. Who was the president? It was under Jonathan. So we keep saying, oh, they want to Islamize Nigeria. They want whatever. Are we not here to Islamize Christianity? I mean, to Christianize Nigeria? Same thing. People of Islam want the whole country to become Muslims. We want the whole country to become Christians. It is to ensure vigilance. They say the price of victory is vigilance. To be vigilant that the other people are not stepping on my rights, just as I will try not to step on the rights of the other people. But if you sit down and keep quiet, then a lot of things will happen. And I'd say the responsibility of Christians who are in our state houses of assembly and national assembly is great. Because go there and see, it is not as if there are only 10% Christians in the National Assembly. No, there are a lot more. Are they up and doing when it comes to lawmaking in this country to protect the interests of their faith? Because when you say protect the interests of the church, it's as if the church is a different entity from them. To protect the interests of their faith, are they up and doing? And when cases like this come, I will recommend that bishops don't take it up. Bishops should point back to them and say, you are the ones out there. The social teachings of the church is addressed to people like that, to make sure that they hold the flag, that they hold the torch to make sure that the interest of the church is promoted in every sector of society.
Thank you so much, Father. You have been an iconic televangelist. People look up to you. What are your advice to the Nigerian youth who are gradually losing faith, both in the church and then in the society?
Well, I don't know. What you call me a televangelist. Where? When did I begin? Well, I'm on TV. Yeah, that's true. There's a crisis of youth. In fact, internationally, they are called the millennials. Those born around the threshold of the 21st century. The millennials, people who are between 15 and 35, the young people. There's a lot of crisis because the world has changed so phenomenally within the last 20, 30 years. There's been so much changes in the world, and it has affected the stability of people, the mental, emotional, psychological stability of people. It has affected very seriously. So I sympathize with a lot of our young people because society is not stable. I mean, and young people have been scandalized a lot by their leaders. I mean, every day you open the newspapers and you see how many stories about corrupt leader, about this leader is taken to court by EFCC, this one taken to, I mean, and some of it is true. It's not helping the mind of our young people. So we have scandalized our young people, and we need to actually apologize to our young people for the scandal we have caused them. Then plead with young people to see that there's something called meaning and purpose in life. That life is just not about being on the fast lane, fast cars, and big houses. That there's something more to life. Because as St. Augustine says, the Lord has created us for himself, and our hearts are restless until they rest in him. If we have all these flashy things and we don't have meaning, if our lives are not rooted in God, then we'll crash. And as a lot of people are crashing, you see a lot of young people are committing suicide. Marriages are collapsing every day. People are running mental. People are going on drugs. So the fact, if in a society when you see so many people beginning to commit suicide, when you see so many people on drugs, when you see so many people depressed, it means there is something. It's not just about poverty. It means there is something in the way they think that is wrong. It's often a thinking problem. So we need to help our young people, and we need a lot of people in the adult society who sit down to say, how can we help our young people? How can I be an example of meaningful life for the young people? And every priest, every religious, every catechist, every responsible father and mother in the Catholic Church, in the Christian Church, must consider themselves as models for our young people. Model of responsible living. Not joining the bandwagon in a life of greed and graft and grab everything, but models of a life of meaning, of a life of purpose, of a life of fear of God. Models in a life that finds meaning in helping and touching others positively. To say, my life is meaningful, not to the extent that I gather all this, acquire all these material things. My life is meaningful to the extent that I help that little orphan, that I help that child through school, that I'm able to help that woman through her hospital challenges, that if we begin to give example of our lives in that direction, then soon our young people we may not get all of them, but many of them will be able to get.
Thank you so much, Father, for granting us this interview section. Bless it.